This is Storybook Radio.
The morning light filters through the curtains and settles across his face, a narrow, angular face defined by quiet intensity. His jaw is sharp but relaxed in sleep, faint stubble lining his chin. A thin scar cuts through his right eyebrow, subtle but permanent. The result of a childhood fall he barely remembers. His gray eyes, when open, carry the look of someone who watches more than he speaks. He looks like himself. His wife, Emily, rests against his shoulder, her hair spilling across his chest. Between them, their 5-year-old son, Eric, sprawls sideways, one small arm draped possessively across Adrian's ribs as if anchoring him in place. Eric's breathing is soft and uneven, the deep sleep of a child who trusts the world completely. For a moment, everything feels rooted, permanent, earned. Then the alarm sounds, a thin digital chime. Adrian reaches carefully across Eric to silence it, and opens his eyes to concrete. Cold presses into his spine. The sky above him is wide and gray, framed by steel buildings and the low mechanical hum of early traffic. A bus exhales beside the curb, doors folding open as commuters step around him without breaking stride. He sits up sharply, heart hammering against his ribs. Downtown, the smell of exhaust, the scrape of shoes against pavement, the distant wail of a siren threading through the morning air. And beside him, rubbing sleep from his eyes, is Eric. "Dad?" The boy's voice trembles with confusion but not fear. He still believes his father can fix anything. Adrian turns quickly, gripping Eric's shoulders, checking for bruises, blood, anything that would make sense of this. "Are you okay?" His hands move over the boy's arms as if confirming he isn't fading. Eric nods. "Why are we outside?" Adrian doesn't know how to answer that. His throat tightens. The world feels displaced, like scenery swapped overnight. They move through the city together, father and son navigating crowded sidewalks that feel both familiar and estranged. Adrian keeps glancing down, confirming Eric's weight, his warmth, the way his small fingers curl instinctively around his own. "Let's go home," Eric says softly, as if home is a reset button. Yes, home. Home will explain everything. The cab ride feels suspended in time, the city sliding past in blurred fragments. Adrian grips Eric close the entire ride, afraid the boy might dissolve if he loosens his hold. When they reach their street, relief hits him so hard it nearly buckles his knees. The house stands exactly as it should, brick facade, white shutters. The thin crack in the driveway he always meant to repair. The porch light Emily insists on leaving on overnight. He unlocks the door with trembling hands and steps inside. The kitchen light is on. Emily stands at the counter rinsing a mug. Her posture is relaxed, familiar, real. She turns. "Adrian, where have you been?" The normalcy of her voice almost undoes him. "Nowhere," he says too quickly. "Just stepped out." "You didn't answer your phone." "I didn't hear it." His pulse is still racing. He waits for Eric to run past him toward the hallway. Silence. He doesn't look immediately. He's afraid of what he'll see, or won't. Emily studies him. "Are you all right?" He nods. But something inside him is splintering. "Our son," Adrian says finally. His voice cracks slightly. He turns toward the hallway. "Where did he go?" Emily follows his roaming eyes. "Adrian," she says gently, "we don't have a son." The words fall without echo. "Yes, we do," he insists, a strained smile pulling at his face. 5 years old, brown hair. You read him that space book every night. He sleeps between us when he has nightmares. Her composure fractures. "You were diagnosed 3 years ago," she says quietly. "Early onset dementia with Alzheimer's. The doctors warned us your mind might start blending things." Blending. "We lost the pregnancy," she continues. "After that, it progressed faster." The room tilts slightly as if someone has shifted the foundation beneath it. Pressure builds behind his eyes. "Just lie down," Emily says. "You're exhausted." He lets her guide him back to the bedroom. The mattress dips. The blankets rise. He closes his eyes. The alarm sounds again. Concrete beneath his palms. The sky stretches gray and unbroken above him, colorless and indifferent, as though the morning has decided not to participate in whatever is happening to him. This time, there is no small body curled at his side, no Eric rubbing sleep from his eyes, no voice asking questions Adrian cannot answer. He pushes himself upright slowly, brushing grit from his hands while traffic hums past in steady indifference. Commuters step around him with practiced avoidance, their movements fluid and unbroken, as if he were simply another piece of street furniture installed overnight. He rises and steadies himself, waiting for panic to hit. It doesn't. What replaces it is worse, a creeping familiarity, as though this scene has been rehearsed before, and his body already knows its cues. Instead of running, he begins walking toward home with measured steps, turning corners without hesitation. His muscles remember the route even if his thoughts resist it. Streetlights change on schedule, cars idle, the world functions perfectly, and that normalcy unsettles him more than chaos would have. When his house comes into view, a strange resistance tightens across his chest. It stands exactly where it should, brick facade uncracked, white shutters clean, lawn trimmed with almost surgical precision. Yet, something about it feels staged, like a model home awaiting buyers, rather than a place where arguments, laughter, and small nightly rituals accumulate. He steps onto the porch and pauses, listening. The wood does not creak beneath his weight. The silence that follows is not empty. It feels arranged. Inside, the air carries no scent of coffee, no trace of detergent or perfume. It is simply still, suspended in a way that makes him aware of his own breathing as the loudest thing in the room. He closes the door gently behind him and waits for footsteps. None come. He moves through the living room slowly, fingertips grazing the back of the couch. The cushions are firm, uncompressed by habit. A throw blanket rests folded into a clean geometric square, its edges aligned too neatly to suggest use. Even the remote control sits parallel to the table's edge, centered as though positioned by measurement rather than by hand. He presses down on the couch. The fabric yields briefly, then springs back without memory. His gaze shifts to the walls, and that is when the unease deepens. They are bare, not recently cleared. There are no faded rectangles, no small nail punctures, no slight variations in paint tone where frames once hung. The surface is uninterrupted and uniform, a seamless plane that suggests photographs were never mounted there at all. "Emily," he calls, and the name sounds misplaced, like a word spoken in the wrong language. He moves into the kitchen, opening cabinets one by one with increasing urgency. Inside are neatly stacked plates, but only enough for one. One mug rests in the sink, dry and unstained. One fork lies beside it. No second cup, no evidence of shared mornings. The refrigerator hums quietly when he opens it, revealing shelves organized with minimal groceries, measured portions, solitary habits. Bathroom next. One toothbrush standing upright in the holder. One towel folded on the rack. No stray hair caught in the drain. No extra bottle of shampoo crowding the edge of the tub. The bedroom feels smaller than he remembers, though nothing has physically changed. The bed is made with tight precision, corners tucked firmly, the sheets stretch flat across a single indentation near the center. One pillow rests at the headboard, positioned carefully rather than divided into sides. He circles the bed slowly, scanning the floor for the accidental mess of shared living. A dropped sock, a misplaced shoe, a forgotten charger coiled beside the outlet. There is none. He opens the closet. Half of it remains empty, not recently cleared but untouched. Hangers spaced evenly along a rod that has never borne additional weight. The unused space feels less like absence and more like accusation. He kneels and drags the storage box from beneath the bed, this time with sharper urgency. The lid scrapes softly against hardwood as he lifts it, sending a thin echo through the room. Photographs spill into his lap. He flips through them more slowly than before, studying each frame as if searching for a flaw in reality's editing. Birthdays where he stands beside cakes alone, vacation landmarks where his arm hangs awkwardly at his side instead of around someone's waist, office parties filled with people who smile politely, but stand just far enough away to imply distance rather than closeness. There is no wedding band visible in any image, no framed portrait of a wife, no child tugging at his sleeve. The pattern is clean, immaculate, final. His breathing grows heavier as he scans image after image, hoping for a single inconsistency, a shadow where someone once stood, a blurred edge that suggests removal. There isn't one. He drops the photographs onto the bed and stands, pacing once across the room before stopping at the darkened window. His reflection stares back at him. Angular jaw, gray eyes, the thin scar cutting through his eyebrow. The only living person he can presume exists. He lowers himself onto the edge of the mattress, and it dips beneath only his weight. The other side remains perfectly smooth, untouched by years, by habit, by memory. He lies back slowly, staring at the ceiling, listening for something. A distortion in the walls, a glitch in the air, any fracture that would expose this as malfunction rather than truth. Nothing responds. The blankets rise around a single body. He exhales, long and unsteady, and closes his eyes. The alarm sounds, concrete beneath his shoes again. But when he lifts his gaze toward where the house should stand, where brick and shutters and porch light once anchored his certainty, there is only an empty lot enclosed by a rusted chain-link fence that rattles softly in the wind. Weeds push through fractured soil. Dirt replaces foundation. A weathered sign leans slightly to one side. Future development coming soon. He stares at it for a long time, waiting for the letters to rearrange themselves into something recognizable. They don't. The house is gone, not damaged, not abandoned. Erased so completely that even the grass seems unaware something ever stood there. Days lose structure after that. They stretch and collapse into each other without edges, without markers to separate morning from night. Adrian drifts between shelters and alleyways, moving through the city like a misplaced object that no one claims. He searches dumpsters with mechanical focus, asks strangers if they recognize him, studies faces for flickers of familiarity. There are none. People glance at him briefly and look away, their expressions flattening into polite detachment. He begins to understand that invisibility is quieter than rejection. Until one afternoon, while wandering without direction, he stops in front of a bookstore window. The glass reflects him faintly in the shadow of the building, but beyond that reflection, inside the store's warm light, he sees her. Emily. She stands near a display table, flipping gently through a hardcover novel, her posture relaxed, her expression softened in a way he hasn't seen since before the alarms began. And beside her, holding a book with a bright illustration of planets and distant stars, Eric. Adrian doesn't think. He moves. The bookstore door swings inward as he pushes through it, the small metal chime clattering overhead. The air inside smells of paper and dust and something faintly sweet, like old glue and polished wood. It is warmer than the street, quieter. Emily! His voice cracks through the aisle. She turns sharply, instinct tightening her shoulders. Near the front display, Eric looks up from the spacebook, eyes widening at the sound of his name. Eric! The boy startles, stepping back instinctively. Emily's hand moves without hesitation, pulling Eric behind her. Sir, she says, her voice measured but firm. You must be mistaken. Adrian stops only a few feet away, breath uneven. It's Adrian, I'm your... The words collapse before he can finish them. Movement draws his attention to the end of the aisle. A man steps forward slowly, each stride controlled and unhurried. Angular jaw, gray eyes, a thin scar cutting cleanly through his eyebrow. The man is him, not similar, exact, perfectly aligned, perfectly intact. The other Adrian reaches Emily's side and rests a steady hand at the small of her back, the gesture natural and unforced, as though it has been performed thousands of times. Eric leans into him without hesitation, gripping the sleeve of his jacket with unconscious trust. Something inside Adrian shifts, not sharply but with dreadful recognition. He has seen this before, not in imagination, not in dream, this exact arrangement of bodies, this lighting across Emily's cheek, this fear in her eyes. Imposter! Adrian shouts at the man wearing his face. I'm the real one. People begin to turn between shelves, their faces curious but cautious. The murmur of pages turning has stopped. The other Adrian steps forward, calm and composed, studying him with an expression that almost resembles concern. Sir, the man says, his voice softer now, edged with pity rather than fear. Are you all right? Sir? The word lands with weight this time, not confusion, finality. Adrian takes a slow step backward, drawn toward the mirror mounted near a sectional display. Something in him already knows what he will see, yet he cannot stop himself from confirming it. The reflection meets him. The jaw is broader than he remembers, the nose slightly crooked, the eyes unmistakably brown. No scar, no trace of the man who once woke in warm sheets between his wife and son. He stares at the stranger in the glass, waiting for shock to rise. It doesn't. Only recognition settles in. He lifts a trembling hand and touches his face, feeling the unfamiliar contours beneath his fingertips. I've stood here, he whispers, voice thinning. I've stood in this exact place and said these exact words. Behind him in the reflection, Emily remains close to the other Adrian, the one wearing his former body with effortless ownership. Eric clutches his sleeve. The other Adrian's hand rests firmly on the boy's shoulder, protective and practiced. Adrian's breathing splinters into shallow pulls. I did this already, he says, though the statement feels less like protest and more like memory surfacing through fog. You pushed me out. I came back. I tried again. The other Adrian watches him steadily, and for a fleeting moment, there is something almost sympathetic in his expression. Not guilt, but acknowledgement. Security approaches from behind, footsteps measured and restrained. Hands take Adrian by the arms, not violently, but firmly enough to make resistance futile. As they guide him toward the exit, he keeps his eyes locked on the man wearing his life. The other Adrian leans closer to Emily, his voice low, but not low enough. People like him, he murmurs softly, need help. Emily nods faintly, her fingers tightening around Eric's shoulder. The bookstore door opens, cold air rushes in, and as the sound seals, Adrian understands something colder than fear. This isn't the first replacement. It's just the first time he remembers being replaced, not just lost, not erased, recycled.